Holger never intended to let the secret slip, but the moment the words escaped his lips, there was no retracting them. It was a routine media chat, an innocent inquiry about his peers. And then he dropped the name. Alex Eala. The hesitation in his voice and the way his gaze darted away, the tennis world caught every nuance. That singular slip-up would transform a quiet, private admiration into the sport's most explosive headline. In the high-stakes arena of professional tennis, certain athletes haul more than just personal ambition onto the clay. They shoulder the collective desperation and hope of entire countries. Holger, the Danish prodigy known for his fiery outbursts and lethal backhand, had evolved into exactly that beacon for Denmark. At merely 21, he had already cracked the top 10, toppled multiple Grand Slam titans, and cemented his status as one of the ATP's most electrifying talents. His ascent was not just rapid, it was essential. Denmark had been starved of a tennis icon of this magnitude for generations, and Rune donned that heavy mantle of responsibility like a suit of armor. On the other side of the tour, within the WTA ranks, another young star was grappling with her own suffocating version of stardom. Alex Eala, the Filipino trailblazer, had transcended the role of athlete to become a national symbol. She etched her name in history as the first from her country to seize a major title, claiming the US Open girls singles crown. The first to breach the WTA top 200, then the top 150. Every match she played meant far more than ranking points or paychecks. It was about demonstrating that a nation of over 110 million souls deserved a seat at the global table of elite tennis. Their trajectories intersected sporadically at joint tournaments. The professional circuit is a much smaller village than fans realize. They share the same hotels, the same training grounds, and the same lounges where future legends brush shoulders with desperate qualifiers. Rune and Eala moved in similar orbits, yet they rarely occupied the same frame. He was the volatile virtuoso battling for Masters 1000 glory. She was the gritty pioneer, fighting through the trenches of 125 events to claw her way onto the main stage. Yet, their dynamic was fascinating. They embodied the same hero's journey in parallel worlds. Both hauled national burdens that would shatter weaker spirits. Both tasted victory precociously and were now navigating the treacherous waters of living up to that early promise. Both wielded that scarce mix of mechanical perfection and psychological steel that divides the good from the potentially legendary. And both of them, whether they confessed it to the press or not, deeply grasped the singular isolation of being the lone warrior for their flag in a ruthless individual sport. The tennis community is a tight-knit family despite spanning the globe. Nothing goes unnoticed. They track each other's games on locker room screens, they share practice courts and fitness trainers. They comprehend with a depth no outsider could ever fake exactly what the person across the net is enduring. So when a rookie pulls off the impossible, their colleagues are the first to react. When Alex Eala clinched pivotal victories or smashed ceilings for Filipino tennis, the locker room was watching. And Holger, despite the divide between their tours and the vast geographical gaps, was watching closer than anyone realized. The depth of his interest remained a secret. Until that fateful sit-down, until the second his polished media mask cracked just enough to expose the raw truth beneath. Because in this sport, just as in reality, the unrehearsed slips reveal the heart, what occurs when admiration becomes impossible to mask. It began as a mundane media mandate, the sort of interview Holger had endured hundreds of times before. Just a post-training debrief at a Masters 1000 showdown. The usual drill, reporters tossing predictable softballs and athletes batting back safe, robotic replies. The vibe was low-key. A shaded corner by the courts with the rhythmic thwack of balls providing the soundtrack. Rune lounged in his sweaty gear, loose, prepared to sleepwalk through 15 minutes of generic tennis banter. The reporter led with the basics. How was prep going? What about the bracket? How was the recovery from that naggy injury that sidelined him last week? Rune responded with the autopilot efficiency of a veteran who knew the script by heart. Yeah, he felt great. The knee held up. He was eager to compete. Standard, professional, instantly forgettable. And then came the curveball that derailed everything. Holger, you've mentioned studying other rising stars. With the women's tour also on site this week, are there any up-and-comers on that side whose game really catches your eye? It was designed to be filler, a fluff question to eat up seconds and maybe snag a soundbite about the future of the sport. The reporter likely anticipated a nod to Coco Gauff or perhaps Mira Andreeva. It was supposed to be the usual suspects, the safe bets, the titans everyone already discusses ad nauseum. But Rune swerved. He hesitated. And this wasn't that standard rehearsed delay athletes use to cook up a safe diplomatic soundbite. No, this silence carried weight. His gaze drifted left. That telltale sign of someone diving into a real memory instead of reading from a mental script. Then, the smile broke through. Not the polished, media-trained grin reserved for sponsors. This was unguarded, reflexive, maybe even a little shy. "Alex Eala," he murmured, his voice dropping a decibel or two. "I think what she's doing for Filipino tennis is just incredible. The grit she shows on court, battling through the qualifiers, grinding through the lower-tier events just to earn a shot at the big leagues, it's seriously impressive." The reporter smelled blood. You could practically hear the gears turning, that sharp intake of breath before the inevitable follow-up. "So, you've been watching her matches?" Another beat of silence. Rune shifted his weight, and for a fleeting second, the top 10 powerhouse dissolved into a 21-year-old caught staring. "I mean, yeah, I think a lot of us are. Her game is incredibly well-rounded. Her footwork is elite, and her head game, especially during the tiebreaks, you can't teach that kind of steel. You're born with it. Or you're not. And she's got it." That was the clincher. The detail. Holger wasn't just throwing out platitudes. He wasn't relying on empty buzzwords like talented or hard worker, the filler fluff players use when they have no clue who you're talking about. He was dissecting Eala's mechanics, her court coverage, her psychological resilience under fire. These weren't hot takes from a 30-second viral clip on Instagram. This was the breakdown of a guy who had actually sat down and studied the tape, someone who respected the craft enough to have an opinion. The journalist pushed the advantage, realizing they were sitting on a gold mine. "Have you two hit the courts together? Maybe chatted about strategy?" Rune's face changed instantly, realizing he'd wandered into dangerous territory. "We've spoken a handful of times at events. Just standard player lounge chat, you know? But her dedication is real. I have a lot of respect for that." Then came the kicker, the single sentence destined to be dissected by tennis Twitter for the next 7 days. "She is going to shock the world. She has the toolkit to crack the top 50, maybe even higher. And when she breaks through, everyone will see exactly how special she is." When? Not if. The absolute conviction, the specific forecast, the emotional stake in another competitor's rise. The interview dragged on for a few more minutes, circling back to safe harbors like serve mechanics and tournament brackets. But the spark or the slip-up, depending on who you ask, had already ignited the powder keg. 60 minutes later, the clip was everywhere. 2 hours in, it was conquering Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok simultaneously. By hour 3, the Filipino fanbase had already churned out emotional fan cams titled "Rune Respects Eala," set to heartbreaking ballads. By hour 6, the gossip pages were having a field day, plastering side-by-side shots of Rune and Eala with captions analyzing every micro-expression, demanding to know the truth. Holger Rune had accidentally committed the ultimate sin of modern media training. He had been real. He showed something personal, a level of admiration that screamed more than just colleagues to the watching world. The internet was ready to melt down. And honestly, this was just the opening act. Because nobody plays detective quite like tennis stans. The moment that footage dropped, the online tennis community morphed into a chaotic FBI forensics unit. But they weren't hunting serial killers, they were trying to measure the exact depth of Rune's feelings for Alex Eala. Ground zero was Twitter. A massive fan account retweeted the video. "Look at that smile when he says her name. I see you, Holger." The quote tweets exploded instantly. The hesitation? The soft voice? And he said when she does, not if. "I am literally screaming right now. Pros do not talk about other pros with that look in their eyes unless there is a story there." But the investigation truly went nuclear when the timeline sleuths started digging into Rune's digital footprint. That's when the plot thickened. One user unearthed a post from 7 months prior, a grainy practice shot Eala had uploaded from a clay court in Spain. Buried 73 comments deep was a single fire emoji from Holger Rune's verified handle. Back then, it was invisible. Rune had 800,000 followers. Eala was sitting at 200,000. It was easy for a stray emoji to get lost in the shuffle. But today, it looked like a smoking gun. Then another breadcrumb surfaced, a story Eala posted 5 months ago, celebrating her first main draw win, tagging the event and her sponsors. Holger Rune had definitely seen it. Instagram doesn't broadcast story views to the public, but the eagle-eyed fan who caught this had receipts, a screenshot leaked from Ayala's close friends circle. There it was. Rune's verified handle sitting right in the viewer list. That single image kicked the internet sleuths into overdrive. Digging through a tennis photographer's backlog unearthed a gem from Indian Wells, one of those massive combined tour events, just a background snap from a practice court. Holger and Alex Eala were waiting for court time, caught mid-laugh in what looked like a genuine connection. That photo was 4 months old. Back when it first went up, it barely scraped together 40 likes. Now? It was circulating by the thousands, captioned with lines like, "Look at that gaze and they've been talking for ages," while tennis drama channels rushed to upload. Holger Rune's secret crush screamed one headline. Why Alex Eala has the ATP star's attention read another. The algorithm did the rest, force-feeding these clips to hundreds of thousands of casual fans who probably couldn't name either player yesterday. TikTok morphed into its own wild rumor mill. Fan editors stitched together Rune's highlights with Ayala's, setting the whole thing to trending love songs about secret crushes. One video broke down their playing styles, pointing out uncanny parallels in court positioning and shot selection, hinting they must be sharing trade secrets. That clip racked up 2.3 million views. Over on Reddit, the tennis community exploded with a megathread dubbed the Rune Eala situation. Here is everything we know so far. Users cataloged every single interaction, every loose tie, and every tournament where their schedules might have overlapped in the same city. One sleuth found they had both trained at the Muratoglu Academy years back, albeit never at the same time. Another dug up an old clip where Eala mentioned hitting with male pros to level up her game. Was Rune the mystery sparring partner? For the Filipino tennis world, this was uncharted territory. Alex Eala had already put the nation on the map with her racket. But this hit different. One of the ATP's brightest young stars wasn't just praising her, he was doing it with a warmth and specificity that felt incredibly personal. Filipino sports roundtables spent hours dissecting the implications. Manila morning radio hosts couldn't stop talking about it. This had transcended mere tennis news. It was showbiz gossip, romance rumors, and national glory all rolled into one. Yet, the mood wasn't entirely festive. Some Eala loyalists asked why this mattered at all. She is a phenomenal athlete in her own right. One viral tweet snapped, "She does not need a male player's validation to be worth your attention." That post hit 15,000 likes overnight. It sparked a fierce side debate. Was obsessing over Rune's comments actually belittling Ayala's hard work by defining her success through a man's gaze? Meanwhile, the Danish fanbase was split. Some thought it was sweet to see their tennis prodigy showing a softer, human side. Others feared he was losing focus. Holger needs to keep his eyes on the ball, not on the WTA Tour, grumbled one user on a Danish forum. His season has been shaky enough. The last thing he needs is a media circus. Professional tennis journalists, the ones who actually cover the slams for major networks, found themselves in a weird spot. Was this even legitimate news? One veteran reporter tweeted, "I have been on the tour for 20 years. Players always respect each other, but the way Rune spoke about Eala, that specific technical insight mixed with such deep personal investment in her future, I have honestly never heard a pro talk about a peer like that." The speculation hit fever pitch when someone realized that both players were slated for the same event. Rune and Eala were both on the entry list for a combined tournament starting in just 2 weeks. The chance of them crossing paths, giving interviews about one another, or getting snapped in the same frame sent fans reeling. It turned into the internet's most hyped subplot. But then came the twist nobody saw coming. The inevitable backlash. For every fan swooning over Holger Rune's words, there was another who viewed the dynamic with deep suspicion. As the narrative choked tennis social media, the dissenting voices got louder, sharper, and harder to brush aside. It kicked off with a scorching thread from a major WTA fan account. "Can we discuss how toxic this Rune Eala obsession is?" Suddenly a top ATP star's nod makes Eala legitimate to the masses. She has been grinding for years, winning matches, but the world only cares now because a man looked her way. This encapsulates everything wrong with women's tennis coverage. That thread struck a nerve. Within hours, it was retweeted thousands of times, with pundits, ex-pros, and advocates chipping in. The heat wasn't on Rune's admiration itself. Most agreed his praise came from a good place. The problem, they insisted, was the massive spotlight his words got versus the coverage Alex Eala's actual victories had ever received. A prominent tennis columnist fired the first shot with a headline declaring, "Alex Eala does not require a stamp of approval from Holger Rune." The article cataloged Eala's impressive resume, highlighting her junior Grand Slam victory, her gritty ascent through the rankings with zero budget, and the weight she carries as a beacon for her country's sporting ambitions. Under normal circumstances, these feats would demand headline news based solely on the blood and sweat she poured into them. Yet here we are, discussing her only because a male superstar dropped her name in an interview. That isn't a problem with Holger Rune. That is an indictment of the entire tennis media ecosystem. The backlash quickly spiraled beyond just the coverage disparity. The internet hive mind started doing what it does best, forcing a romance narrative onto two strangers who have never even shared a public conversation. We need to remember these are flesh and blood humans, not fictional characters in a scripted drama. The obsession with their personal lives is crossing the line from curiosity into something genuinely creepy. Even Rune's diehard supporters started worrying that the circus was derailing his career, especially after months of shaky performances and meltdowns. The conversation shifted from his forehand to his heart, completely eclipsing the sport itself. Behind closed doors, his management team must be absolutely seething at how this story has spiraled. The drama became content fodder, with podcasts spending hours dissecting the morality of it all, one even consulting a sports psychologist. At that elite level, athletes are programmed to be robotic, to never give the press anything to latch onto. Every syllable is dissected under a microscope. That Rune dropped his guard and spoke with such raw passion suggests he was either blissfully ignorant of the fallout or simply didn't give a damn. Regardless of his intent, both athletes have been thrust into an incredibly awkward spotlight. However, the backlash was met with a fierce counter-offensive from those defending the young star's comments. A viral video from a coach asked the obvious question, since when is it a crime for one professional to respect another? Rune analyzed her mechanics, her mental fortitude, and her grind. It was technical, precise praise, not some condescending pat on the head. It was a case of game recognizing game, pure and simple. The shock at his sincerity reveals more about our cynical culture than his character. Meanwhile, Filipino fans brought a sobering reality check to the table. We have been screaming into the void for years, begging the global press to look at Alex. A local reporter lamented on social media, noting they celebrated every solitary victory while the rest of the world looked away. If it takes a quote from a top male player to finally get her the global spotlight she earned, then maybe we should just take the win. A veteran broadcaster added her voice to the fray. She recalled the brutal reality of being an unknown challenger trying to smash through the glass ceiling. A shout-out from an established icon wasn't just nice, it was currency. It put you on the map. That attention converted into better practice courts, primetime slots, and checks from sponsors. If his words boost her trajectory, that is a net positive. We can critique the broken system while still accepting a helping hand. The discourse exposed a fracture in the fan base, splitting everyone down the middle. Was this innocent admiration or a parasocial romance? Professional courtesy or a crush? A sweet moment of unity or proof of the patriarchy? The online forums turned into a war zone. One top comment cut through the noise, arguing that everyone was losing their minds over nothing. Two kids burdened by national expectations saw themselves in each other. End of story. The rest is just fantasy. The rebuttal was just as sharp. The fact that this non-event is headline news proves the system is rigged. When was the last time the internet broke for 3 days because a woman complimented a man's backhand? The disparity in value is glaring, and this hysteria is the smoking gun. Even the locker room started to react. A top 20 female player posted a cryptic tribute to the invisible grinders on tour. A clear, albeit nameless, nod to the unfolding chaos. A male rival countered with a generic practice shot captioned with a call for mutual respect, clearly trying to play peacemaker. The vagueness only added to the intrigue until the press finally cornered Rune's camp for a statement. The official reply was a masterclass in corporate damage control. It stated that Holger Rune holds deep respect for anyone who sacrifices for the sport. His remarks were strictly about her talent and drive, nothing more, and he wishes her the best of luck. It was stiff, sanitized, utterly stripped of the magnetic spark that had set the internet on fire during the original viral clip. Fans smelled a rat immediately. The suits got to him. One comment blasted. Legal teams stepped in to neutralize the magic. That statement is dead inside. Another raged. The video had a pulse. What is the truth? Yet, the biggest mystery hung heavily in the silence. What was truly going through Alex's mind amidst this media storm? Ultimately, a careless slip of the tongue morphed into a brutal wake-up call. These icons are flesh and blood, not just walking rankings. They are young souls trapped in a fishbowl, desperate for a real connection in a world that never stops staring. Holger's confession about Alex peeled back the curtain on a layer of the game that spectators rarely witness. The gritty reality of the arena, the shared scars and silent pacts between warriors surviving the same unique pressure cooker. Whether it was sparks flying, a budding romance, or just game-recognizing game, one fact stands tall. Both stars navigated the sudden controversy with the absolute poise of champions. They taught the world that the most gripping headlines aren't about blood feuds, but about the shock of genuine admiration, where they go from here, both on the court and within this mysterious bond. That remains the ultimate cliffhanger. But history will mark this as the day a raw truth pierced the corporate veil, proving legends are just humans craving support behind the trophies. So, what is your verdict on the real vibe between Holger and Alex? Strictly professional respect, or a hidden chemistry? Unleash your wildest theories in the comments. We are dying to hear your hot takes on the tour's most captivating puzzle. And if you crave more unfiltered access to the heartbreak, hysteria, and secrets of women's tennis, smash that subscribe button. We bring the heat, the arguments, and the raw humanity that makes this sport an addiction. Catch you on the flip side.